And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Film Talk Guys.
Hello, welcome to another episode of This Movie Needs More Flavor. I'm Adam.
I'm Josh.
In this episode, we cover the 1997 comedy Grosse Pointe Blank. Grosse Pointe Blank stars John Cusack, Minnie Driver, Dan Aykroyd, and Alan Arkin. It's about a hitman who's persuaded to return to his hometown for his 10-year high school reunion. Along the way, he reunites with an old flame, evades rival assassins, and comes to terms with his past and what he wants for the future. What do you say, Josh?
In viewing this, probably the third time now, I really got into the character development, especially the side characters. I got to go with my absolute favorite character that I'm going to talk about first, and that's Joan Cusack's Marcella. Okay, number one for her is that final scene. She's got everything covered. She's got paper shredded. She got shit scattered. She's wailing on things with mallets. She's dumping gasoline with a lit cigarette in her mouth.
Depending on how you look at it, she is the angel or devil on John Cusack's shoulder.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, in this scene, she's just going for broke on that devil. And I absolutely love when he's giving her a call and she's like, wait, why? Are you going to come looking for me? He's like, not like that. Check the desk. And then she pulls out that fat stack and she's got her arms raised in the victory V. All right. It's just the best. It's the best. Everything is a slow progression into that. You know, her kind of losing her cool over the boring soup base and then cussing out the supply guy. It all leads into that, and it's just the perfect climax. She has such a well-rounded character in such a small role that leading into the second person I want to talk about, Alan Arkin's character, I'm just a little confused because I feel really that Alan Arkin was underutilized and his character was underdeveloped. And when you compare the level that Joan Cusack's character was to his, it feels like his falls short.
I'm going to touch on that later, so we'll get back to that.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like the character's not fleshed out, and I question if scenes got cut.
That is another something I will get to later. You might be right.
So yeah, as much as I appreciate Alan Arkin, I can't get on board with the character because it's just not a strong enough character. Now, moving on to, we're talking side characters here. One of the ones that I really appreciate, and I found it interesting as kind of the lead into, because we have these like quick find outs about him before it goes right into the reunion. It's just boom, boom, boom. Can't go home again, literally. Mom's in the loony bin. Dad's a dead alcoholic. Just boom, boom, boom. But right prior to that, you have this kind of slower paced moment where he interacts with the teacher, Mrs. Canetta. And I love their interaction. Growing up, you would always come across these no-nonsense teachers where it wasn't like they were hardline. It was just, they were going to tell you how it was. And they weren't going to get upset. They were just going to explain it.
That's just how they're wired. Nothing personal.
Yeah, they're just going to call you out on your BS. And I always had more respect for those teachers who could call you out, and not lose their cool. And this is one of them. And I wonder if, it wouldn't surprise me at all to find out that whoever wrote this rolled back for their reunion and had that verbatim interaction with their teacher, because both of them, they kind of cut each other a little bit, but they're both appreciative of seeing each other. So I would love to see that relationship beforehand.
There were people who were inspirations for one of the writers, Tom Jankiewicz. So that could almost certainly be the case.
Yeah, that's straight up one of his ex-teachers, as much as he could possibly make her.
The town was actually based off his town. So, I'm sure he infused a lot of stuff in there. So, nice point.
And my second side character, he's a little less of note, but he's huge in my mind. I just appreciate this kid so much. Carl at the Ultimart. I mean, when he rolls in, his first interaction with this kid is auto-confrontational. I'm working a double shift. What's it look like? He's like, I'm not telling you that, just automatically. And I mean, he rolls in the next time round and he's just rocking the Doom 2, which I also love.
And I'm nerding out here. I could be wrong, but I don't think Doom was ever for arcade. It would have been badass, but I think they added that for the movie. Either way, it's cool.
Oh yeah, they added that for that movie. They added that for me because I appreciate it. But when he pulls him out of there and it explodes, if you watch, Carl gets up and just straight up shoves him. I'm not all right. I'm hurt. I'm pissed. I gotta find a new job.
The guy is perfectly ignorant.
Absolutely. I mean, he's got his little problems, and that's that. Okay, so I also want to give just a little shout out to one other character, and that's my appreciation for Dan Aykroyd's character and how they always have hands-on guns when they're interacting with each other. And, well, that's all I'll say on that one. But I do love him, so I just had to get him out there. And I guess the final thing that I want to talk about is that soundtrack. You got the Clash, Violent Femmes, the Specials, the Beat, Lorca's Novena by the Pogues, in that one scene where Aykroyd's about to pop the dad. I love that, man. And when I heard that, I was like, what is going on here? And I'm like, who the hell rated my high school playlist? And then, I'm watching it for the third time, as I said, and 2 minutes in, I understand when I see original score composed by Joe Strummer.
Bingo.
And I'm like, oh yeah, this all makes sense now. And I think it's a real interesting choice to push that, that 80s punk and ska, new wave stuff in with, just kind of standards like I Can See Clearly Now and, Live and Let Die. I think the choice to do that, I appreciate it definitely because, as I said, it's my high school playlist all over again. But I just appreciate that somebody decided, you know what, let's change it up. Let's make it a little bit more interesting and do that.
Well, the movie being a 10-year anniversary from 86, I think it's fitting that the music is predominantly 80s. It just encompasses different aspects of the 80s, whether it's pop, new wave, grungy type, like Violent Femmes.
Yeah, and, the fact that she's running the radio just ties it all in nicely. And I'll end with, For a While. For a While.
Well, thanks, Josh. Given that you handed me that, I will start on this note. That scene with Michael Cudlitz, I love that scene because he finally softens up to John Cusack's character, Martin Blank, and he starts reciting a poem. And then Cusack, very indifferently and coldly, just tells him to skip to the end. And that wasn't originally planned. Cusack ad-libbed that line. And I like it because it's funny, but it's also him turning the tables. I feel a little bad for Cudlitz's character because he finally opens up. But at that point, Blank, he's got no shits to give. He don't care. He's done with it.
He's past it. And, I mean, he's a hitman. He's given this man way more patience than is required. And, so he's done. And he done in a nice way. Just tell him, skip to the end.
John Cusack, he has got his finger on indifference. He's really good with that. So the director, George Armitage, he claims to have, in essence, filmed 3 movies in one. He shot 3 different takes for given scenes. One take he kept to the script, one was underplayed, and the third one, quote, was completely over the top, like improvised or more energetic. And I'd really find it interesting to see what kind of movie could be put together with all the different kind of scenes, like different tones. And that goes back to Alan Arkin. I wonder if there were more scenes that were taken out that might have shifted the tone where you might have seen Dr. Oatman a lot more.
Right? Or just maybe the different takes would have been something that kept it more grounded.
All right, so I'm going to go back to Dr. Strangelove. We're briefly returning back there. The scene where Debbie calls Martin a psycho. I noticed John Cusack's response was a quote from Dr. Strangelove, General Turgidson. Well, I'd like to hold off judgment for a thing like that, sir, until all the facts are in. And I didn't notice it before, but when I rewatched it, I'm like, holy shit, that's from Strangelove. And I think it's kind of fitting that those two characters would say something like that, because they're both a bit comical in certain ways, but their morals are very ambiguous.
Yeah, and that like amplifies the nature of the humor. Is that you don't know where they're coming from. So it's like that guy who tells you a joke and you don't know if he's joking. Yeah. So you're like, that was a damn funny joke, but is this guy sick in the head?
So you mentioned one of the songs, Live and Let Die, earlier. That ties into something I've noticed since the first time I saw this movie, and that there are a couple Bond references. The first one is the string poisoning scene at the very beginning. That is taken from You Only Live Twice, the movie. And in both times, interestingly enough, the assassin misses the mark to a certain extent. And then the Guns N' Roses take on Live and Let Die when Cusack shows up at the Ultimart. And I do like how it goes from the Guns N' Roses version to a Muzak version the minute he steps into the Ultimart. But both of those are ties to Bond movies. Oh yeah, and the assassin who's following Blank, that's champion kickboxer Benny the Jet Urquidez, and he was also Cusack's kickboxing instructor. And the fight scene between those two was pretty sweet, I'll be honest, and the track during that scene, the music track, Mirror in the Bathroom, by the beat or the English beat, depending on where you find it, love it. Not just in the scene, but I love that song, period. So in this, I'm going to briefly touch back in a minute with Dan Aykroyd. But I, too, have a few characters that I like. And they're the ones in the forefront, but I like the dynamics. First one I'm going to touch on is Debbie. The dynamics the characters have, the chemistry the actors have, it's great, man. Like, there's something very natural about it. Like, very natural. So, with Martin and Debbie, there's a kind of disconnect, a rift, obviously, but there's also a certain longing for each other that's ready to break loose. It's kind of like they're picking right back up from where they left off in high school, and it feels natural. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like it kind of grows.
The opening scene with the two of them, when he rolls in real quick and quiet, and then they see each other, and it's just these weird stares back and forth. It's really nothing more than that. And then, like, leading into them, like, are we gonna make out a little? We're making out a little, and that was that. So yeah, I mean that first scene right there demonstrates exactly what you said.
And I feel like they don't. Yeah, there's certain leaps for the film, you know, her accepting certain things, but other than that, I feel like they don't really betray the characters at any point. They pick that path and they stick to it as much as they can for this kind of film. So I appreciate that.
There is a surreal aspect to people just being accepting of the situation, but they never like try and suddenly make that real on you.
Right.
They never try and make it, oh, this is real life, by the way. And it would have been kind of hammy if they'd done that.
They don't go too deep, and it's not too superficial. It's just the right tone. All right. So my second character is Dr. Oatman, Alan Arkin. I actually do appreciate him. I will admit, I agree with you. There could have been more screen time with him, and maybe there is more footage of him out there. But I appreciate how underused he is for as good of an actor as he is. This guy is scared as hell of Blank, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with him. So for that alone, I like the fact that you don't see him a lot. He wants his distance. He doesn't want anything to do with him. And when he's around him, he's a nervous wreck. And the scenes together with those two, Cusack, for most of the movie, is his most vulnerable. He opens up to him, you know, like you would, being the psychiatrist. But even then, he's got this way of just domineering the situation, while the poor, uncomfortable doctor he passively tries to do what he can, knowing full well he's not going to help unless Blank changes his ways, turns himself in, whatever it may be. So I love, he's just, poor guy, dude.
Yeah, he's stuck squirming, and that sucks so bad. But what I do find interesting is at the end of the session where it's one-on-one, it's both of them. He basically tells him exactly what to do, and he follows along with it. And then, of course, that last interaction is him telling him he's worthless. That's so sad for Arkin's character.
And that's what makes his character like so, although you don't seem a lot, so lovable. It's like, I don't like you. I don't like what you've done. I don't want to work with you. I've done everything I can. I've helped you. And yet you still turn around, you mother. So that's him. And then Dan Aykroyd. He plays a methodical killer spot on. He's got a way about him. Even from his early days on Saturday Night Live, it was evident to me, looking back on those episodes, that Aykroyd could pull off some oddly dark comedy. He's got a way about it. It's great. It's fantastic. Grosser, his character, has this sort of lunacy simmering right underneath the surface. It looks like he's got everything together, but nah, dude, you let him loose, he's like a rabid dog. And yes, as you touched on earlier, the suspicion between these two, they're always like ready for something. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch because it's like two sharks just circling each other. Those two characters can do a lot of damage together if they were to team up. But even if Blank actually wanted to, I could never see those two teaming up. They're just too volatile.
Yeah, Aykroyd's character, he talks a good game in terms of sanity, but it's clear in every action and his reactions that he is not there in the slightest.
He has way too much fun being a psycho. But even with how cartoonish that is, there's one moment that I always appreciate with his character because it humanizes him just a little bit. It's the scene when they're in the diner and Aykroyd makes mention of like the pills he takes. And it's oddly human. It's like what these guys are doing is not mentally healthy. It's not bringing him any real lasting joy.
And he's got a prescription for that.
Yes. So it's the little things there. And lastly, this is not my kind of film ordinarily. And I like it because it never struck me as your run-of-the-mill love story. It's not. There's a vulnerability in the character of Martin Blank that goes beyond the vapid, "ah shucks, I think I love you" sort of thing. That's not the kind of film that attracts me. This guy's a killer, and he feels lost. And the film juggles that heaviness with the sort of levity I can appreciate. It takes on that darkness and has a bit of fun with it without going completely off the rails. And that's my take on the matter. Music by Ross Dominus. Thanks for sticking with us for 1997's Grosse Pointe Blank. We appreciate the listens. If you like what you've heard, give us a like, share, subscribe, and even comment if you'd like. Any constructive criticism is helpful, and if you like it, we like to hear that too. Until next time, take care.